Hello.
How's my sound?
Oh, that's better.
It's not overbearing or anything?
No.
Good. We're making weird sounds. Okay. Thank you. About to start. No, I can use it in Vietnam. Ah. I never really used it though. Oh. I sit. I'm sorry.
Why are you sitting like that when I'm sitting like...
I have no idea. This is the first time for me sitting.
That's right. Yeah.
This is the first time me sitting.
Yeah, you're definitely sitting differently from the standard animation.
I didn't do anything. No, I'm sitting like you.
Did I do that? I guess your leg decided that you had an obstacle, so it's straight. Oh, there's 3 different ones?
Okay. So, why am I not changing the other ones? Why am I not changing my HiFi? I'm way over ahead. I would like my camera to go.
There's the rewind you're pointing to your eyes so that the characters can move by animation.
Is it?
Yeah, you have rewind, so you usually sit down and then rewind another character.
Oh.
So you makes it slowly as your animation.
You're saying that you do it after
Okay.
but I bet
Yeah.
you it should be done.
And the trick is my hands are also not connected. To the tablet, yes. But
Yeah, that was actually one pretty question for each of us. What happened when you're designing your own avatar? Your system decides what you want. Is it
That's exactly what I wanted to ask.
like
It's
does
the
it
viewpoint.
That seems to be averaged between. Okay, so from what I can gather, it seems to be either A, between the two eyes, as in like the average position between the two.
like the two eye bones?
Right. Or it seems to place it somewhere as like a weird triangulation between the head bone and the eyes.
Weird.
Yeah.
It'd be
Otherwise,
really interesting to know.
I have
'cause,
no idea.
It doesn't follow the eyes. I know that because my eyes, wobble around and my view don't.
Well, okay, so
That's
the
good.
original, it does have an original position and has a non-original position. So if you move the positioning by script, there is still technically an origin position, and that's what it's basing it off of. If my assumption is correct, otherwise, no idea.
I've noticed when I say
No, I don't think you can.
and I forget
I
to put
can-
the eyes in, it
Flow
projects it
bones or
from your head bone.
Are
And
they
then
flow
when you
bones?
put the eyes in, it
Yeah.
actually projects from your eyes.
Okay.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the head bone must be a fallback.
Right.
That's interesting because, like, for example, my Kobold avatar that I brought in, it has normal eye bones, but then those eye bones are joined to secondary eye bones to animate the actual eyes because they need to be, what's the correct word here? Extrapolated because they're so far away from where you'd expect eyes to be for such a big avatar.
Well, not even that, but technically there's an advantage to doing that, and the advantage is a feature that's been only requested for a small while by some people on HiFi, is that you cannot control the eyes. They are non-controllable by script. You cannot rotate the bones, anything. The only way to adjust them is to do that trick that you mentioned, which is literally just put them on as a secondary bone, unassociated with the original, so that you can mirror them.
Yeah, like with the Kobold, it's because the eyes are so far apart and so far forward that it has normal human bone eyes deep
Right.
inside the avatar, and then the eyes that you actually see on the outside of the avatar are way far ahead.
Yeah.
And of course, I can imagine that would be really bad if it mounts the camera inside your body, though.
Oh.
Well, there can be some advantage to doing that. Now, the only thing is that I don't know if High Fidelity does any adjustments for the HMD when you have it on. As in, does it move the camera position, or at least its rotational joint, based on that information? And that's something I actually don't know.
I will ask about that. I'm curious myself. I'll post in the forums afterwards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and find my Kobold just for an example now.
Ooh. Well, hello,
And-
everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. How's everybody doing today?
Pretty good.
Well, despite all my discoveries, moderate.
Yeah. Anything new in 73? Is that what you're talking
Oh.
about? Or
Oh, yeah.
some issues?
More specifically, 73.1, the hotfix.
Oh.
I could
well-
demonstrate it very easily.
What do you
And
got?
it's not harmful. I'm gonna go run away, and you'll see me come back. You'll see what I mean.
Did I just hear you run away?
No, so look at his animation.
Oh.
His ears?
No.
It's really big.
And he got big?
Animation.
You didn't get it big on purpose?
It's because
see
it
it.
exemplifies the effect.
Oh.
You should be noticing, it looks like my frame rate sucks.
Your ears are... I don't know.
No,
Oh,
just
look, yeah, I
animation
see what
from
you
a
mean.
distance.
Yeah, you're skipping.
are pretty
So
bad.
it's the distance then?
Yeah, they're doing some LOD
Yep.
stuff.
Oh.
High Fidelity added a
I didn't know that.
Oh,
So then when you get
button.
closer, when you get in here, then you start to look fluid?
normal.
Actually, you can kind of see it on the other side of here. So, like, if you're sitting on one side, you see when they start to LOD the animations from the other side. So
Yeah, there seems to be a
pretty
hard
bad.
limit of 25 meters, as we've noticed, 20 to 25 meters, where it will start to degrade all animation and real-time updates, no matter how high of a load the server is under.
Even if it's like one person, you know, I mean, 2 people in a room.
Interesting. Good to know. I didn't know that. I don't know if we've brought that up yet.
Well, we've definitely brought it up on the forums, and pray to God that there's no recording that'll be involved, especially with the last avatar standing, because it's gonna look like a slideshow. It should also be mentioned it is not based on the camera's position, but the avatar's position. So even if you use, like, say, the inspection or have some way of moving the camera, it will continue to degrade the animation even if your camera is right up to the person you're looking at.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a serious
looks
issue.
really bad. I mean, this is like unacceptable for like platform.
And I know why it was put in. The thing is, they said, oh, well, it was for facial animation. No, if it's just for facial animations, I can understand, but this is not facial animations. This is the entire armature, and I'm gonna be bluntly honest. I can see the merit in its effect, but it is so aggressive with no option to disable. I can see even the Fumble Land project already having some problems.
Yeah, I totally see what you're talking about. I'm gonna go talk to the Avatar team about that.
Yeah.
How can I grab a pink sphere?
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, could look into that and see what's going on. I did not know that. I haven't really looked at it from afar like
Yeah,
that.
but I
That's
like
a
the model.
good example. Thanks for showing that
There's a video on a couple different locations.
on the forums.
Yeah, on the forums
Okay.
and on Discord.
Okay, cool. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yep. Other than that,
well-
nope, everything's fine.
All right, good. Well, thanks for bringing that up. Well, let's get started. Besides that, we can get started after that. We can get into things more. Is anyone new to the meeting or new in general that would like to say hi, introduce themselves?
I'll worry about the iBone question later. Don't worry, I can pocket that one for later.
Okay. It looks like I recognize everybody for the most part, so okay, we'll carry on. Well, welcome to the meeting. You said you had a question about iBone?
Yeah, we were just... Oh, come on, thing. I was trying to figure out how your point of view gets mounted onto an avatar in regards to where it puts things. I do not know what's going on with my avatar, but okay. Anyway, how it mounts the point of view camera onto avatars. Like our one friend over there who has eye stalks. How do you decide where the camera ends up when you're modeling your character?
Yes, good question. Silverfish, when you made yours, did you choose where to put your point of view, or how did that work?
No, I don't see any option to do that.
Okay. And so right now you see your point of view from where your eyes are, or down where your
No,
kind of
I see my
nose is?
eyes here, right there.
I see. So I could see how that could be a problem.
But I had an issue with an earlier version where I could actually see the edges of my eyeballs.
Yeah.
But then I moved things around a bit, and it's okay now.
So you had to adjust the model for it,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
just moved your eyes around and stuff.
Hey, Matters,
Oh,
your
okay.
mic is open.
Oh, sorry about that.
Do you happen to know, Dog Bones, if we'll have any option to change that anyway?
There's no option that I'm aware of to change it, but I know we're trying to automatically figure out where to put the camera based on joint topology.
I love that word.
Yeah, I was just about to say
Automatically.
that. I was just about to say that.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
rigging gets very
Actually.
complicated, and oftentimes the system tries to do it for you, and sometimes it doesn't work out. So in this case, I don't have an answer for you, but I'll go find out and I'll post the answer to them.
Okay.
I also want to say, in general, any of these questions that come up in here that I hear, if I don't have an answer, I'll post it to the forums after, and I do check out the forums every day to see what questions are new. So try and get answers.
Awesome.
Just last thing I'll add to that then is if you can add a way for somebody to deliberately mount the POV, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I hear you.
Because I can imagine if I say I had a quadruped avatar, I can imagine the camera will be floating somewhere above my head where it doesn't belong.
I have a follow-up for that.
Yeah.
In regards to quadrupeds, the collision boxes are crazy wrong. So it would be nice to either, I mean, probably the simplest way is just let us have a way to define our own collision box.
Yes.
You just got capsules at the minute.
I can't actually say that. I just realized.
Oh my goodness.
So
when
Marcus,
you're a quadruped, are you still a capsule as a collision box?
Of course, but
well, it's like I had. Unfortunately,
that won't be the case.
I don't have it on hand to demonstrate, but I actually made a quadruped. It was a bear with a run and walk cycle, and I brought him in and hooked him up to that wonderful little avatar or animation state engine. And he worked, except for his collisions were basically
Marcus.
his butt was the only thing that had any collision, and it extended out quite a ways back from his behind. And there didn't seem to be any way to correct that.
You're saying
Marcus,
you had walk animations
I think it's on the
all
roadmap.
fours, like a quadruped walk animation.
Beg pardon?
You had a quadruped walk animation, so you were basically down.
I was on all fours, yeah.
So I know we just have a capsule. I'm sure that the capsule doesn't try and detect your pose and like reorient. We might be able to rescale the capsule, but again, I'll have to just go ask.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because for me that seemed to be like the big blocker towards doing a quadruped, unfortunately.
Yep. Marcus.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
sir.
could see very easily if you could just make it like a collision capsule. If you don't include one, it just uses the default, but you can add a collision capsule that you can reorientate and resize to fit your character.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally a capsule is kind of how we keep you from colliding with each other. If you're quadrupedal, you wouldn't necessarily want just a vertical pill that...
Yeah, you just roll it, or you just flop it down 90 degrees, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, except that the capsule is also a nice way to get over curbs. And so if you turn it on the side, I'm not so sure how that would work with curbs.
I do know that there was, it's sort of one of those weird, not fully mentioned things that you can offset the avatar skeleton. I think it's like TS or something in the FST. A feature request that was done 2 years ago, I think, was an option for the FST to where we could define at least a base, or at least, if we assume the capsule generation is having a little bit of a problem, be able to redefine the capsule's dimensions. I understand things like dimensional capsule rotation would be, like a all hands on deck, how on earth is that going to work approach. But at least being able to redefine the size and even its offset, because if I put my Yield Gen 1 avatar, the first one I came into here with, this one has a capsule issue where it's actually massively in front of me, and that's because the tail is bound to the hip bone, and through large amounts of trial and error, it was determined that the capsule generation doesn't like it when the hips are very big, or namely when the hips are of an unusual shape. And the same goes for the
guys,
head.
This is kind of a moot point because Philip has stated that proper collisions for avatars is on the roadmap.
And so are a few other things, but until then...
There's no fix.
Right.
Yeah, but you know what else is on the roadmap? 1 billion users in VR. And that's not going to be here for a long time. So...
Yeah.
But in the meantime, there's no real fix for the capsule issue, is there?
Was anyone running into issues with that in a avatar they were wanting to make for the contest?
I would have loved to
coming up?
use my bear for the contest, but not going to happen.
Okay, well, it's good to
I'm poking
know
my
that people are wanting to
contact
do
about
that, so we can push that more and let everybody know, let the powers that be know that people would like to do that, and you would have if you would have had the option to.
Oh, shoot, what happened there?
That's good to know.
Ah,
What happens when you use the bear, though? You just collide into things, right?
that was weird.
Oh, my bear, basically his his collision shape, for some reason, I have no idea why, extends way behind him. So basically, anybody who stands behind him, if he turns around, gets swept around. But yeah, it's you know, I don't want to rant. I promise I'm not going to rant. But I mean, it's I spent a lot of time on that bear.
Yeah.
I animated the walk and run cycles by hand, and now it's like I can't use them really.
So you're saying
yes, Piper.
Have you turned on the setting where you can look at what your capsule looks like while you're doing that?
Yes.
And is it huge?
Yes.
Then there's a problem with your model.
In my
no, wait, not the capsule, but the bounding box.
No, you have to look at the capsule.
No, I don't know if I've done that.
Yeah, it might be worth doing first.
And no, my
I'm very curious
scale
because I
is
plan to
fine.
sink a couple $100 into getting a quadruped avatar later, and this is making a lot of importance to me.
I mean, a couple of people here experienced the bear, right? You guys saw it. It was a while ago.
I like the bear.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see that bear.
Yeah.
There we go.
Unfortunately,
I do remember something.
I can only bring them in static right now.
When did the capsule generation thing become multicolored? It's like having trippy vision, and I love it.
In developer mode?
Yeah, so in the past it used to be just black, but now it's like the head is given a purple, a very like lilac sphere. The connecting points are given a lime green, and the bottom is just like some very ugly yellow. But
I'm not sure when that changed.
I don't know either, but I'm not complaining. I can definitely see that being useful for diagnosing certain things. So that's cool. I'm so glad I found it again. Because my capsule generation is also broke. Because it says it's right around where my tail is, but it's not true. It's actually in front. So that's why I said this avatar is a bit of an anomaly.
Yeah, I just turned on show capsule collision shapes, and it looks like you have a giant ball attached to the end of your tail.
Yep, but if I walk up to you, it's
it
really
is bumping me.
Yeah, it's in front. That's what's so weird.
Yeah, it looks like you're dragging a Voltor behind you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, talking about your tail flame, because I'm planning on putting some flow bones on my hip bone too. Is this super difficult, or could you lay out the workaround?
Well, okay, so I'm not a person that does any modeling work. When it comes to modeling, I make cylinder, I happy. If I can get it to be textured properly, slightly happier. Anyway, I do know at least the basic idea behind getting the flowbone stuff set up. And I mean, I did make a corrected version of this avatar, which I have called the fix. The issue with the fix is that my rigging skills show why they suck. The bone is not properly set.
Oh, yeah, your tail is following like a trailer as opposed to being attached to you.
Yep, like I said, it does, however, fix the capsule issue. I mean, okay, for the most part, the ears are actually making it still a problem, but it's not anywhere near as bad.
Yeah, your capsule looks completely normal now.
Yep.
Did that just go invisible?
So if I would attach
Who's that there?
flow bones to my hip the same way I did it with my hair, Would I run into the
I
same
can no longer see my
problems?
avatars. Or you
No.
say that.
In fact, that's actually the solution.
Yeah, I see his white
If you
robot.
run into a
Okay,
situation where your capsule generation is very, very unusual, the solution that was more or less found when, I had
Yes.
this avatar looked at is literally take whatever is causing the problem and bind it to not the hips and not the head. So in this case, this avatar still has a problem because the ears are still bound to the head, and that causes a tiny bit of miscalculation. But the tail, which was the biggest culprit, was the issue. In fact, the game bot was affected very much in a similar manner, and for the game bot, the solution would effectively be the same thing. If Curtis came back and made head 2 and bound the head to the head
that's
2
what
bone.
I did. I made like 3 head,
Yeah, I was
1A, 2A, 3A bones. And
Right.
to these I attached the hair, and then I had no problems.
Yep. Yep. Same thing with any other component that's connected to the hips and the head. So
hips and head are the
of the Pulsar capsule generation. They are the quintessential. The system will always look for. In fact, we were discussing this earlier. If the system cannot determine where your eyes are for camera placement, it falls back onto the head bone.
Nice.
So that is how essential those 2 bones are. Your position for your avatar's default location will be bound to the hips. The camera's backup location and most other calculations are bound to the head bone.
That's very good to know, especially the trick of just duplicating your hips and head to make a secondary bones.
Yep. In fact, I would even go as far, even though you will need a script to work it, because another feature that has been
It's like an app someone made.
non-existent is the ability to edit the eyes. You cannot rotate the eyes of any fashion. However, a workaround would be just make eyes LI2, LRI2 in the same exact position, and use the script to mirror the rotations when you want the system to control it, and then control it yourself when you feel like it.
Actually, that Kabold I was just showing you was related to that, but that's a longer conversation.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I have a question. I'm curious if how many people are submitting an avatar for the contest?
Here.
Yeah. I'm sure we know how many people. There's a submission form, right? If everybody knows or doesn't know, did you have a question, or are you
I
saying
missed
yes?
the submission
You
form.
are?
I'm saying yes, and I have a question.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, there's a submission form. So if everybody knows, there's a form to fill out before then. So
I was supposed to get a reply for that form.
Sorry, Case. 1 second. What'd you say?
I was supposed to get a reply, like a confirmation.
I'm not sure. We could find out. I could find out if there was supposed to be a confirmation after. You've already submitted the form and didn't get a confirmation back. Okay, I can find out for you. Right after this, I'll send a message and find out.
Where do you look for that? Because I signed up for the stress test itself, but I didn't see a form for the avatar contest.
I can pull that up on the forum and put out a button for broadcast.
In the forum post where the avatar contest was announced, I believe there's a form there. We could bring it in. Last week we had him up here. I don't know what happened to him, so somebody can bring him in, or I'll bring him in right after this, and we'll have a link in World. Perfect.
Okay,
thank you.
Here's a question. When is it so that us that can watch, spectators to the contest?
If you want to come in World, I believe it was 11 to 12 is when they're going to do the avatar contest. That's also when the load contest will, or the load test will start. But I know on the forum it said 11 to 12, I believe, was they wanted to make sure you were able to show off your avatar then, or asked if you could on the forum, so you could walk the runway.
Oh, okay,
cool. If you'd like.
Until when can we enter?
Good question. Till when? Because on the 6th was pretty much the last day. Yeah, it doesn't say. until when? So I would
perfect.
assume right up until the event.
Okay, great.
Yeah, which is 11 a.m. to 12
Wow.
PDT.
Oh wait,
time.
yeah, you're right.
And it's 30,000 HFC for grand prize, and 10,000 HFC for second and third. Cool. Has everyone checked out, or if you haven't, there's 2 new domains that showed up today: Haunted and Zombies. They fit the theme, the name, quite well. I went over there earlier and got scared a couple times.
I'd like to make a complaint.
I wasn't scary, but it was
Not
zombies was
scary.
cool, but I don't think it was scary.
I think so. I think it was the setup. Someone, set me up when they were like, "Oh, come over here and try to jump down the elevator." And yeah, that doesn't happen. I don't want to give it
I have
away,
to say,
but
the one that did startle me was the devil that jumped up out of the background there.
That's it.
Well,
Just,
don't give it away.
Spoilers.
Don't give everything away.
I will say where it is.
Yeah, well, anybody making an avatar that kind of fits that theme, kind of like what I'm wearing? I didn't make this, but I got infected when I went over to the zombie island.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a question about transparency
Mhm.
and avatars. I can make objects and put it, so I've got like windows and stuff, and they have transparency. But every avatar that I make, if it's got hair that's transparent, it doesn't come out transparent, and the eyelashes don't come out transparent. I've actually noticed there are no avatars in HiFi that are transparency anymore. They used to.
And were we talking earlier? Was that specifically with Fuse avatars too?
I've got a funny feeling it is to do with Fuse, because when we first had it, it was not owned by Adobe.
The reflection.
Oh.
It doesn't reflect. It reflects the same
Dogbones, do you have
like the
any
environment.
input on that?
Does my eyes do that?
Transparencies on avatars?
I don't. I'll look at it. Materials is not really my forte. I'm a modeling, rigging, animation guy, but I can certainly look into that. I do see a big write-up about the Fuse pipeline, specifically about the eyelashes, and I wondered about that myself.
Did you see that link I sent you?
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
We could find somebody that does have some more info on that and follow up. Yeah.
Yeah, I have experience fixing those issues.
Oh, really?
I pay him to do it.
Please take the
Not on
stage,
this one.
Chris.
Not on this one yet.
Would you enlighten us?
Well, if it depends on how you
Take the stage, Chris.
Yeah, come on down.
Yeah,
Chris.
get down there.
Jamie.
The main problem is the way that Fuse is exporting its textures. Some of it, if it's related to hair, they have like a global transparency map they use for no matter what kind of hair you have. So the roughness and transparency channels on the hair are super off sometimes. They don't match at all. For the eyes and the eyelashes, they have the transparency channel mapped in the color channel, and so like the PNG file that you get out of it has transparency in it with the eyelashes, but High Fidelity is expecting it as like almost like a separate material. So I've had success like actually clipping it out and creating its own material and reassembling it all. But if you just want to get it directly out of Fuse, there's definitely a lot of texture work you have to do to get it right. I haven't found it. Rebecca up there just sent me a link that has some information that will fix the eyelashes and the eyes, but it won't fix the hair. So the way that I've done it, I use Maya when I like assemble all of it. Like say you generate a Fuse character and you want to bring that into High Fidelity. The best way that I've found is to go ahead and like export it, rig it, and mix ammo, bring it back in, but also export out all your textures as PBR materials, and then go into whatever 3D app of your choice and then create the materials based on those PBR textures, which have the correct transparency information. I'm not sure how to do it in Blender, but in Maya, you create a Stingray PB, Stingray texture, and then you don't leave it at the default. You select one that actually has a transparency channel from the color channel, and then that'll work right every time. I don't know if that's kind of a roundabout answer, but it definitely can be fixed. It's just nothing you can do out of Fuse without some sort of, either manually playing with the textures in Photoshop or remapping to a PBR texture seems to correct anything.
In fact, I'm almost having like a blast from the past. That was actually a.
Oh, no. Okay.
Oh,
well,
did we
that's
lose
just
Flame?
me.
More like a blast from the crash.
Personally, when it comes to transparency, what I would like as a
I didn't like what
creator
he
is
was
the
gonna
ability
say.
to specify whether or not my transparency is alpha masked
That
or
was
alpha
not the blast
blended,
from the past I was talking
and
about.
what
That's blast to desktop.
You
Yeah.
said alpha and what?
alpha masking versus alpha blending. We don't get to specify that. You guys just automatically try to decide which an alpha is, and as a creator, that can be annoying.
Yeah, it's like I said, the way that I can reliably fix it is if I just export all the PBR textures out of Fuse, and then just reassemble the textures and reapply it, and then choose that type of texture, that PBR texture in Maya, and it totally fixes it. The only problem, like I said, is with the hair, the
Sorry,
roughness.
Chris, can you clarify something?
Uh-huh.
When you say choose that PBR texture, do you mean is it a material that has alpha channels in it?
Yeah, there's. Let me open in Maya real quick, and I can tell you exactly which one it is.
So you mean material, then, yeah?
Yes. Sorry.
Right, because there's, yeah, you got to get that right, yeah.
And did someone say something over here about menthol? Something? Does he have something posted about? Or his name get thrown out?
Yeah, I've heard him mention that he's got some plugin for Blender that's supposed to sort all the problems out, but I've never got the link for it.
Oh, okay. We do have it, or he has it on the forums, on our forums. He's got it posted.
Forums are massive.
It works really well. It has a few quirks, but it's fantastic for us newbies.
Yeah, and I can get you a link posted in here directly, so we'll give you that
Thank you.
direct link. Yeah.
Did you locate that, Chris?
Yeah, I'm getting it open now. So, like, you create a Stingray PBS for the the model you want to create, and right under that, where under settings, there's a preset standard. You want to switch it to preset standard _ transparent, and that will allow any transparency information that's in the color channel. You just tick the use opacity map, and you don't have to specify a second texture. It just pulls that information out of the transparency channel in the base color map.
Thanks, Chris. You've just solved the problem I was going to have tomorrow morning.
Okay.
I was planning for that problem. Now it's going to go away.
I just put the Blender tools in chat, by the way.
The only problem with doing it that way, if you do have anything that's in the same material that has a metallic channel, it causes some wacky problems with the metallic. So, but usually, something you make transparent is also going to be metallic. So, but if you're trying to pack your UV maps, like say you're trying to create an atlas map that has as many objects in there as possible, it will cause an issue like that. Like say part of the object you have on the atlas map is transparent, and it also has a metallic thing. I would definitely split those into two materials.
Yeah, I'll do the eyelashes separately, I think.
Yeah. And that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Chris. That's brilliant. Round of applause. Yay.
Woo!
I can't clap because I'll end up smashing my controllers together.
On a side note, just in case you're in VR and you would rather have a better close-up of the Avatar contest, so I'm pretty sure I can also get Menethal's thing moved over as well. If you hit the little gray box there, it will actually broadcast the webpage directly to your tablet so you can view it at your own leisure.
Oh, I'm not familiar how to do that. If you can beat me to it, by all means, please.
I put it in the chat too. So if you need to grab the link in the chat, I have
I can't laser it. Maybe because the tablet is open.
Oh, yeah, let me slide this out of everybody's way too. There, it's over on the left.
Which box? The Wi-Fi icon
Yeah.
box?
The Wi-Fi
I
box.
can't laser it.
You laser it and it does what?
It's not working.
It should open the browser for you to the link that's
it's not though.
included in it. I
Not-
put it also
That's
in
weird.
the
I
chat.
just clicked on it and it worked fine.
No, I'm wanting to see if I can get this to work. Not more importantly.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I can contest that it does work. I don't know why it's not now, but Flame has had it working before.
But can you check the temperature on that icon? Because I think everyone's lasering it at the same time.
I almost resorted to putting a QR code on the wall because they don't know how to make a button.
That would be good.
No, I just reset the
need an
script
in-world
and
scanner.
hope that maybe that would
Take a picture.
fix it.
No.
Take a picture of it.
I'll have to jump in VR and see if they broke another thing. Great.
Brute force always helps.
Percussive maintenance.
I do know at least that's how
Did that get
mine
it for
is
you?
working,
There you go. You have to persuade it just a little. Give it a nudge.
It also, I just realized there's actually a distance check on it, and it was but I set it really far, so.
When we get the opportunity, I have a question regarding the GoTo app, but I don't want to segue out of people's avatar talk yet.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Speaking of, does anybody have a question that they wanted to hit Dog Bones up with, the avatar rigging specialist from High Fidelity? He's come in to answer any questions we have, especially before the avatar contest is due, so... okay, well, if not, just let us know. Either stop in and help, or also he's active in the forum, so you could post in the forums as well. So, excited to see everybody's work. We've been talking about it for the last couple weeks. So, okay, well, yeah, you have a question about the GoTo app then?
Yeah, it's a mixed question and suggestion because of just the way I've been looking at things. We have a lot of players here in High Fidelity, but you don't even realize how many people are here just because of the vast number of unlisted domains. And me, myself, trying to be a new person trying to launch a domain, realized about the $20 fee to put the domain up. I have absolutely no problem giving High Fidelity money, but I would much rather give you guys money for services like, say, if you guys provide hosting for servers, or perhaps promoting your server, like putting it along the top banner for like premium special servers or something. But when you make it so that people have to pay to get their servers listed, it discourages people from making it obvious that there's people here in High Fidelity.
Yeah, that's good feedback. Yeah, and a good suggestion. What were you going to say, Flame?
Well, technically, High Fidelity doesn't really offer hosting services directly. There is the partnership with DigitalOcean that is set up. The $20 a year is just for High Fidelity's place name services, which technically is optional. But
it is optional, but the
it's
problem
not
is
optional if
since
you want
nobody
people to
pays
find your
for it.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, if the problem is we really want people to be here active in High Fidelity, and there's a lot less draw to. I'm a newbie. I walk straight in. What do I see? I see the codex. Everywhere else is just tumbleweeds. I don't realize that. Oh, look, there's 500 places that people are active in, but since none of those places paid the $20 to have themselves listed, it looks like this place is an abandoned village when there's actually all these places out there. I would totally give the $20 if I could submerge that into some other service other than just for the sake of having my server listed. I'd pay just even to have a server with, I don't know, advertisement of some sort. I don't know.
I see. Kind of like what has been added to it now with the advertisements from High Fidelity, the feature
And that's
section.
a whole kettle of worms on its own.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, for all the server hosters out there, for them to pay $20 for them to be even just plain listed, sounds like a bad idea. I would much rather pay my $20 or more in something else other than listing, just for the sake of making it so that if there's a server out there, you know it exists.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. That's good feedback. Piper, did you want to say something regarding to that?
Well, I just thought it would be nice if you get the HiFi stroke DigitalOcean thing, that you should get that listed included in that package. It just makes sense, really, doesn't it? Rather than just having
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm thinking that I'm like,
it make it more interesting for people if you get the listing at the same time.
Well, okay, now I
because
do.
the listing doesn't cost HiFi anything.
That would be intuitive.
And it's never going to be the thing that makes them money either. Like, even if there's millions of demands,
It is eventually. It will do eventually.
It will
it's
eventually.
it's not going to make anything compared to the amount they need from their investors. So it's not going to be
Well,
like a winning business model.
If you're paying is first,
Wide Web of VR.
and there's enough people paying that you're not
They're
seeing the
gonna
people
be
that are
the
not
interlink
paying.
of VR.
Well, there is that part of it too, that you're buying the name. So, if you didn't have the place name and still had your generic name, but it was listed because you had the majority of the people in there, would that solve part of kind of what you were suggesting or thinking about?
Well, yeah, it's just like a lot of folks, we're already paying to have a actual domain like whatever.com. We shouldn't be paying High Fidelity just for the sake of having us listed. I would gladly pay High Fidelity for various other things, like maybe setting up a kiosk or having my domain advertised along the featured list or something like that. But I can see lots and lots of servers just all going darknet on us just because they don't want to pay that $20.
I guess
Or
one
pay the
maybe-
$20 to not be listed.
I guess one solution that could be done is, okay, so when you get the temporary place names, they only last 30 days. The only thing I could really think of is, and I'm just trying to think of like the non-abusive way of how that would work, because at first I was going like, oh well, if it hits a certain threshold, hey, we'll list your place or whatever. But then it dawned to me like, oh yeah, so all you need to do is connect 5 avatar agents, and then you'll get a free listing, which anyone with any basic server knowledge can do right off the bat.
How about paying to permanently own a nameplate?
That, I can tell you right off the bat, would never work, because there's no way to permanently own Google.
No, but I mean, like, just for when you're having your listings to permanently, like, placehold a certain name. So, like, say I want to own Merp Inc. Well, that stops anybody else from hosting a domain naming it Merp Inc.
But do you
more than a year? You mean, like it is currently?
Well, they permanently for as long as you deem it acceptable. So, say for example, the $20 to hold that domain name for a full year.
Well, yeah, that's how it works.
Well, right now, it's to get listed at all.
Or give people one free one for the next 3 years or something before the growth comes. That will overcome. That will overcome the while growing, people not being able to get their domains out there. And if you make it one that's not prone to abuse.
Personally, I don't mind. I don't mind paying $20 a year for what is essentially a keyword that makes my domain easy to find. That works for me.
But it is a barrier for new
And I
people,
also don't
definitely.
mind that since I'm paying that $20, that people who have paid for domains maybe appear first. But I do agree with Daywin that people without domains should still be listed, maybe lower down, but they should be findable.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe I hate saying this, because to be honest, and I know it's gonna sound mean, GoTo has become cancerous.
Yeah.
But
listen, Flame.
Maybe add
Flame,
another.
No, stop you, Flame. Stop being polite. Say it as it is.
Maybe add another section.
Some kind of server browser.
Rotten, pest-wearing, HIV-infected
I do know there's a lot of feedback or suggestions where maybe having a list of domains, having obviously more than what you see currently there. I know there also is an issue right currently where I'm experiencing it, where the keyboard is covering up the exact info I would want if I wanted to see where everybody's at.
In 71.
other than
Maybe
I
a
just
server
know
browser
they're first.
And
And
you
the fact
waste
that when you click
precious
on
if you
people's
don't know how to get
space
around
for
that,
this
it's a
stupid
problem.
picture,
what's happening now, even if it's not current. I see like if like a current party is going on now.
Yeah.
But hey, I got it. I'm in here every day. I know in my
you still keep
guts
getting those
that the load
messages.
test is coming
Everyone,
up.
devious systems happening in the spot.
But the big thing I'm seeing here is like I'm a amateur server owner. I do things just for the heck of it. I'm already paying for my own domain. I'm paying for DNS surfacing. I'm paying for the hosting, and now I need to pay just for the sake of people being able to see that I exist. That's where I'm seeing the problem.
Yeah, I think part of it is getting
DNS
that exclusive
is the
name.
thing.
No, DNS is a separate thing. For me to have people resolve merp.com to my IP address, I have to pay a DNS host.
That's technically okay, that's sort of okay. So
I'm using
technically, yes, you
for
can.
example.
You can use, as I've tested, you can use standard DNS. Like if you enter in voxel.flamesource.com, it will take you to Voxel.
Oh, it will. I'm saying though is that you are paying for that DNS server.
The thing is that, well, yeah, but the thing is about that is sort of unrelated to the standard place name system within HiFi, as normal DNS entries do not naturally show up under places anyway.
No, I'm just saying is as a typical hoster, say you're hosting a domain or a website / anything, you're already paying to have your website registered, so you're buying your domain name.
Yeah.
You have to have some sort of DNS register, otherwise your host name's useless to you.
Yeah.
And then of course you're doing your own hosting. Paying just so that people can find you on HiFidelity sounds a bit expensive on top of all those other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I do know that we took the feedback of wanting to have the ability to win place names and get more rewards like that. We made them purchasable with HFC.
But also then you have a problem. Say you win a place name for a year. Then you set up a domain, you're really happy there. And you launched it and people visit it. And after a year it goes, okay, now you have to pay for that name. So for me that is like a Abo-Falle. Like an abonnement trap.
Yeah.
How they give you newspapers for free and then
I have a question.
I guess I just kind of think of it as like websites. When you buy the Wade's Place, domain name for a website, I can't buy it, for a lifetime, and I have to pretty much pay, yearly or a couple years.
Yeah,
and
but
you wouldn't be able to find my
that might only be $3.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. Could be. Yeah.
I can think of a few different things that I would be willing to pay money frequently for. I know you guys have your deal with sorry, it was Blue Ocean or something like that, right?
Digital.
Digital Ocean,
I was
right?
calling
Digital
it Digital
Ocean.
River forever.
But I could see you guys buying your own small DigitalOcean server, just a small slice, dedicated to just storing people's avatars, because I can see that as a need that almost all of us have, is a lot of us have server hosting just to hold our avatars, just so that you see my dragon model, I'm running a Linux server, just so that you guys can see me exist. I would gladly pay $20 to have a host just for that.
Actually,
IPFS. Did I spell it right?
Yeah. Regarding hosting stuff, granted, another project that I have in like my bucket list, aka the really large list. One of the things that I looked into, and I mean, I'm wearing this avatar, so that's kind of proof enough as is. The thing is that there is nothing really stopping HiFidelity from including a basic web server that does not list any files or whatever, and just writing a very simple inventory-esque like system. I was actually looking into this, but I stopped because, well, I had another project I wanted to look at. But basically,
that would be great.
when you set up a high fidelity server, as in when you go through like the DigitalOcean thing, and I'm going based off of when High Fidelity sets it up, which I already have problems with, but I set it as Paribus. Basically, the system just sets up a domain server and the assignment clients. That's it. When it comes to anything else, there's nothing else really running. So that's kind of why I look at it and go, why not also bring up a basic FTP, even though that's really not a good idea, but I digress. But at the very least offer, a web port of some kind. And even then, this goes back onto the older topic, and this one's like 3 years old now. Public ATPs, please. That would also solve the problem, because then we could, if you have a place name, temporary or otherwise, it should just be able to look up based on the server and be like, and use High Fidelity's own systems as well. That could also be an option. Basically, there's many solutions that honestly could be approached, but which one's the right one is also kind of tricky too.
Yeah, that actually gave me another thought, which was another good thing, is being able to have domain servers create a special place name, which is a hex ID, a UUID, Universal Unique ID Identifier, so that, say I make a domain, I can have a portal that reliably always goes to my friend's other domain, no matter what happens to his domain, if he changes names or anything.
Okay, so I can spot about 10 problems with that. The whole reason for temporary place names is just that. They're temporary. They're not supposed to be permanent. That's what place names are for. That's the incentive behind all of that. So, binding it to a UUID wouldn't make much sense, because then what would the point be behind people buying place names?
Well, the same reason why you don't want to type an IP address in, but you'll gladly type in Google. Do you really want to type 1256.132.223.634 and then go, oh, there's Google?
Well,
or
yeah,
Google.com.
but I understand that, but technically, you could already kind of do that. If you know the place name of your friend's location, temporary or permanent, you can still have it work that way. You would just have to remember, kind of like how also non-static IPs get refreshed.
I'm just thinking about multi-world domains. That means $20, $20, $20, $20, $20 for every sub-world I make. If I want to point all my servers at each other.
Okay, now that... and this one brings up another point, which would be cool. And hear me out. This one, I can see a lot of domain owners really loving this. When you set up your domain name... Well, not domain name, but when you set up your location, you can specify actual names for different landing points. So, like, I think some of the Welcome Wagon areas were exactly like that. The mini golf especially. I think if you did like hole 1, hole 2, hole 3 after mini golf, so you would do mini golf slash hole 1, it would take you to hole 1. But if you did hole 2, it would take you to hole 2.
Are those just taking you to the same world, different location, or different or same IP, different domain controller?
In that case, it's same world but different position.
Yeah, I'm talking about, like, say you have separate domains. So this zombies one that we have going on, it would be cool that if we went to the zombies thing, we walked around, there was a portal, and then you got warped to a different domain server that was dedicated to, say, players versus players, zombie shootout thing, or a different portal that you went to and it took you to a clothing shop. But they're physically different servers, so they can have different load balancing.
You could still kind of do that at... Oh, well...
Not without buying a separate name for each place.
Yeah. The only way I would see that being a workaround is if you're okay with... I guess one way, like, the only way I could think of...
Can you automatically update them on a regular basis? So that they know where to go. I mean, and when it breaks, it finds it and fixes it.
The portals could be bound to either an IP address or a temporary or permanent place name. So
Yeah, but the place name is there for a while. And if you have it where if it finds that it's broken, that it finds it again and replaces with the new temporary.
I can see that being another unnecessary wall of difficulty, though.
I'm not saying that it isn't a difficulty. It's just a workaround, and workarounds sometimes are difficult. But yeah, you're right.
I'm just seeing the rabbit hole that occurs just for the fact that you're trying to buy a place name. This is the whole reason why subdomains have been
agreeing
created.
with you.
Because that's why people have like ajax.merp.com and then
now that I could totally see if you could specify, like I said, like hole 1, hole 2. Windows. We're gonna have a talk about turning my monitors off. So I could totally see that actually being a website feature, and I could see that totally integrating with the server system where you could bind. So, and I'm trying to like think this out in a way that would make sense. You would be able to do subdomains, so like you would have hole 1, hole 2, hole 3, or in your case, PvP and Avatar Island, even though Avatar Island's its own thing, but let's pretend it's under zombies.
Yeah,
so,
just for sake of argument.
Okay, yeah, so I could totally see if this was to be made as a thing, that a place location would be like zombies/PvP. On the website, you would be able to create additional names, similar to like you did with positions, but because they're reserved already, they can't be made in positions on the servers, but they will now be addressable like it was an actual server location. And if you go back to the other feature I mentioned, where if you go to and you click on a location, but the location offers multiple publicly accessible points.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Then I could see that being useful, because you could click on, say, zombie, and instead of going to the home location, which would be always available, it would say, oh, there's also PvP or Avatar Island.
Yeah, we're literally talking about the difference between subdomains and anchors.
Right, so, yeah, so that's why I'm thinking, like, that could be totally done. That would require a little bit of server coding, but the obvious first choice would be definitely being able to list and go to custom landing points, because then that could lead directly into an anchor subdomain-esque approach to doing something like that, and that I could totally see, and I wouldn't see any argument against that. That would just be more organization for server operators.
Yeah, like, for example, the codex. How often do we jump into the codex and immediately touch the Z/N thing, when people could just jump straight to the road or into the meeting area?
Exactly. And if, say, there was like a meeting zone, a meeting server that was just dedicated for meetings, so it's got, like, you know, the ATP turned off or something like that, so it has more reserved power, but it's still under codex. It would be codex-meeting, but -meeting really points to the other location.
Yeah, even
and
here,
would still even populate codex's numbers itself under the place name.
I have a
like,
more
even
basic
here,
question.
it's maker meeting versus maker build area.
Right.
So I'm curious about. It's nice that you guys have that High Fidelity has made it so we can play for domains with HFC. Thank you for that. But is being able to do auto renewal on your roadmap?
Oh, I think we lost Wade.
Wade, hello.
Rise from your grave
Audio.
again.
Audio. He's like, what the fuck?
Was Wade quiet this whole time, or just hung up his
I
headset?
don't know if he was talking, but we couldn't hear him if he was.
I'm sorry, Wade, but your microphone
I saw the
has
animations, I saw the
died.
title animations. But you've made really good arguments, Flame, and it sounds like a good compromise to me. I'm still just thinking about all these people who have unlisted servers that would, other than the fact that it costs them
And
money
you know,
to
the
get
thing
listed.
about that would also be really cool, because if you had a buddy or whatever who had a place name, that they could be like, you know, hey, you know, I'll just give you your own, you know, landing point or anchor point. You know, so I could and that was kind of why, when I was viewing the inventory system, I was viewing it where you could generate a inventory in your domain server, and all it really does is create another folder, but the idea would be that you would have an inventory script per location, so if you were already a server operator, you could give out inventories to people, as opposed to like, oh, well, everyone has to use the same inventory, and it's like, that's a kettle of fish that should be avoided in certain cases. Some people will be okay with it, but I know some people are not, like me. So that's why I was feeling, well, why not just allow it so like it generates a thing, it gives you a script, you run that script on your running scripts, and it gives you access to that inventory, and you just basically can add additional inventory scripts accordingly. But
here's Wade again.
Wade.
Welcome.
Can we talk?
If you are using an Oculus, you can use sign language. I will slightly understand, but that's because I failed sign language, but I can give it a try.
I think he's using ball language right now.
Hello.
Yay!
There you go.
Yay.
You have finally revived your microphone.
Yay.
Yay.
Wait.
So sorry, Wade, if you were talking to us during that entire conversation, we didn't hear you.
Wait, Wade's back. Wade's coming back. He's back.
You sure?
Before, like, he was frozen in place, and I'm like, uh-oh.
I don't think the zombie's alive.
No.
Like,
oh.
I just see the biggest problem
How
right
do
now
you
that
kill
kind of
a
sucks for
zombie?
me.
It's already dead.
I have so
We
many
made it
friends
deader.
or folks, like, half of you folks here, I never see any of you around, and I have a feeling it's because many of you are not in listed domains.
Oh, in my case, all my domains are listed.
Codex.
How am I supposed to find anyone? I mean, I have my go-to app, but it's pretty empty. I can find a few people and help. That's it. How am I supposed to find people?
A very simple feature request I would probably poke at when the zombie comes back. If you have people who are online and are listed to be shown in connections, to state how many people are actually on your connections. So that when you open up, say, people, it will show you under your connections thing saying this is how many people are on right now.
Oh, God, please, yes.
Speaking of connections, is that like an incredibly laggy thing to scroll through for anybody else?
As someone... Well, I can talk about this.
To this day,
As
I still don't
someone
know.
who was a greeter and shook everyone's hand, yes.
One thing that really gets me is I still don't get what this thing is trying to tell me. What does it mean when there's a purple circle around your friends' names versus a green circle? I thought at first that meant if they were online or not, but apparently not.
Friend and not friend.
Oh, is that literally it? Because there's a friend box to the right, too.
Actually,
for the longest time, I thought the
I'm
green
going to
circle
blow
meant
your
online.
minds. I've been asked this several times. I'm pretty sure Wade has, any other greeter has. Click the question mark.
Click the question mark.
The little question mark next to connections.
Oh, seriously?
You're
What
welcome.
are we talking about?
About unfriending or something?
The purple versus green silhouettes on profile pics under connections.
Oh.
Yeah,
I
that is
asked
really
so
unclear.
many people, and everyone's like, "Huh, I never noticed that. I wonder what this means."
I mean, it could be used for online. Like, it's repurposed as online, but I think it's a bit of a miscoloring. It just confuses a few people.
Well, you think green means online, purple means, I don't know, unavailable?
Well, I know it because of a friend, but that's it.
But that is one other feature I've been asking about last time around was, I see a friend come online, they're in a domain I don't know about, I can't even say, hey, I'm here. There's no PM system whatever of any kind in here yet.
Well, the reason is because of the fact that the servers don't necessarily have to connect to Fidelity's ICE servers.
Yeah, but there must be some sort of peer-to-peer IRC, very, very distilled version you can build of some sort there.
I've been kind of eyeballing Matrix.
Yeah, there have been many talks about that, of even implementing it, like an example using, say, like WebSockets or whatever.
I'm even thinking as old school as Finger in terminals.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't need to do anything fancy. All it has to say is, hey, domain server, can you send this message to so-and-so? And so-and-so can always just deny messages coming to you. They can just block
the issue was sending messages, like, there would be messages you're okay sending, but then there's also the whole privacy factor that I can tell you right off the bat, a good number of users will immediately come back on, and that was what made getting that all set up a little tricky. Of how do you send a message across multiple servers and don't let the servers know about it?
Encryption.
Yeah.
Wouldn't only the sender be vulnerable? Because if I send when I go to the GoTo app, it's already telling me what domain you're in.
Well, not necessarily. It would be a case of, like, people wanted something like that, but there was no way of sending the message. So, like, there's no way to avoid a man-in-the-middle situation. Because if you just send it out and the server is... Yeah, and the server just happens to be a not trusty server, how do you... It's like the issue was building trust, and that's why... One approach that we talked about was creating almost like a mesh networked approach where you would say Voxel forms a connection with Codex, and by that, Codex forms a connection with Voxel. If Codex does not form the connection with Voxel, it doesn't matter. Codex will just not listen to Voxel, but Voxel will listen to Codex. Yeah. So it was supposed to be both servers have to agree to trust each other so that messages can be sent back and forth. And that way, if you sent a PM or a message across, it was with servers that was trusted, at least by the server operators.
Out of curiosity, how does...
I have a crazy idea with that.
Yeah, I have one too.
Everybody has... basically their own sandbox, or close to it. I mean, most people do.
Oh god, not this discussion again.
Why not send it to that location, the message there, therefore it's always going to the person, but it's not going to the other server, it's going to the server that the person already owns.
That means you have to know their direct IP address.
You need to know either IP, they would have to be listed on the ICE server, or...
Okay,
thing is that people have... Okay, so... People used... Okay, by default, back in older times, in a faraway land, Fidelity once gave every new user a fresh sandbox. It was either your tutorial or your safe haven from the wretched worlds that was the place with all the frickin' cubes and the castles. But the problem is that some people didn't want the servers. So they were installed by default and set to always run when you started your machine. And sometimes the assignment clients got very rowdy and created 1,000 threads. Why? No one knew. So the vote was eventually made to remove it, and thus introduce serverless servers. Or basically, the world is a JSON in a nutshell. So the problem is that in theory, yes, if this was 1 year ago.
How does the Gruntilla system work then in torrenting? And no, we don't have to dip into the illegal side of torrenting. I mean just plain legal torrenting. Because the Gruntilla system is it's a node controller that talks to all the clients and says, hey, so-and-so wants to make an encrypted conversation with you, it then somehow encrypts your conversation both ways, and I remember this being a mind blow, was you could actually have text conversations with people that you were exchanging bits of a file with.
I guess in a way, if Fidelity was totally up for running a communication service and thus added a additional benefit to the ICE server system.
Isn't that the thing about the Printilla server, though, is that nobody actually is the main host?
Well, so that would basically be where, okay, the only way I could see that working would be if there was an assignment client type that was just for handling that sort of thing. And thus... so bottom line, I don't actually know that deep into how that all works. I can just assume... Yeah, the only thing I could assume would be to make a new assignment client type, which would probably have to be done anyway, dedicated to just handling messaging, stuff like that. And such a similar service could be if you are, and I mean, the, going back on how torrents work, I do know that when you go onto something, it gives you multiple, at least known, trusted nodes, so that it can tell you the connections of the peers. The way I would then see it is you would be able to trust, not bookmark, so we're not getting things confused, mark a domain as trustworthy.
As a carrier?
Yeah, as an accepted carrier of your messages. And then if you wanted, you could have multiple, just like, again, going back to torrents, you can add more nodes as you go along, even if it's for the same file or group of files, because I don't like downloading Ubuntu twice.
I remember
but
the interesting thing about torrents was some very clever maniac came up with the system in which you have A, I want A. I have B, you want B. Let me talk to you in such a way that I neither give you my IP address or anything else, but everybody else is, although they're in our connection with us, they can't decipher what we're telling each other, despite the fact that we're exchanging files and we don't even know each other's IP address. And they did it somehow, and I'm trying to still figure out the logistics of it, because we don't need to transfer massive data. It's text we're trying to send.
Yeah.
If we could do that where we can have a secure connection between two parties without either party knowing each other's IP address or having to drop the workload onto the domain, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, the only then issue would then be, and this one is where things get a little confusing, some people do prefer to have anonymous accounts, meaning that they don't even have an account.
Which shouldn't even matter anyways, based on what we're doing.
Yeah, so in that case, you would have to find a way to know how to get to the specific person, because session IDs are not, they're... If I come here and then I go to Voxel and I come back here, my session ID will change. It's on per server basis.
So I can't even use it. We can't even use UIDs because those change every time you connect somewhere, doesn't it?
Yes. So the only way to make it work would have to be using Fidelity's central connection system.
And we can't cheat using the Fidelity currency because it's using blockchain, and we don't want to touch that, do we?
Well, not only because of the fact that they don't even want us to touch it, because there's no mentioning anywhere on how to poke it with a stick of anywhere in the API, it would also be just a case of where the fact that it's like I don't know.
There has to be some way to get a message from A to B. There has to be. There just has to be.
Like I said, the only way you're gonna get it done is you're gonna know the IP address, and more importantly, when you connect to a server anyway, it's already logged. GDPR, whatever, don't care. It's logged.
The domain getting it is a lower threat than everybody present in the domain getting it.
Right.
So it's I would trust Maker with my IP address, but I might not trust everybody sitting around me to have my IP address. That's the bigger issue.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. That like I'm saying, it would be a case of, is this friend, which I'd have to take a look at how the connections work. The API for it is not very well documented.
The only person who really dabbled with it was Midnight, who I haven't seen in forever.
One layer we can definitely always do to make people feel more comfortable is
it is JSON
make PMs.
Based, though.
Yeah, one layer we can definitely do that would make people feel more comfortable is you can only PM people that are not only an acquaintance but also a friend, or even just add an additional checkbox where it's not above that. You can say allow.
Well,
PMs.
the whole set availability thing honestly needs to be readdressed anyway, because currently it is, to be brutally honest, it's way too broad.
It is. Like, I can spy on somebody just by shaking hands with them.
Yeah, and that's by default settings, and that's like, there might be cases where I'm okay with people knowing where I am, but then there are cases where I would only want friends to message me. So, like, friends and connections, I'm okay with positioning, but friends, I would only want to message me. So it's kind of, you know...
The only other thing...
And then there are also cases where I have connections where certain individual connections I might not want them to know, or if I set it to friends only, that they're a person I would not consider a friend, but I'm okay with them knowing where I am. So there's issues with individual
So you have an
conditions.
array of choices or a spectrum of situations.
Yeah, and right now
we're
that currently doesn't
security,
exist.
Comfort, and convenience. This is going meta, but the only other option I can think of, and this would involve a third party, is, you know how people can just jump on Discord without making an account, and voila, you're in a Discord server and you can talk to people, and as soon as you close your browser, that session's gone forever.
Did not know that, but okay.
Yeah, you can join a Discord server without signing on, and as long as the Discord server doesn't have the rule that says don't allow strangers that don't have an account, if we leveraged a third party that allows you to just spawn a temporary account when you launch HiFi with your name, and then degenerate as soon as you quit HiFi, but then now we're asking a third party to join in the party here.
I think that sounds more like a request for the difference between being a server session and an online session.
Yeah.
Where when Fidelity authenticates your login, it gives you a temporary online session ID that can only be requested from a Fidelity central system, which all servers can authenticate with, which they would have to do anyway to prove if that's really, a truly authenticated account.
Yeah.
So there is some already kind of handshaking there, so I could see some cases where it'd be like, then something like that would then reintroduce, the UUID thing where, yes, it's always changing, but it's still linked to a contact ID of some kind.
Yeah, one thing we could always do is just simply eliminate half the problem by saying, sorry, you can only use the PM system if you have a HiFi account.
Yeah, and I mean, most of the systems within High Fidelity, in fact, 73 introduced this, which I know some people had some upsetting issues with, where the wallet was now migrated from being a file on your hard drive to being on the website with your account. With a also higher emphasis of signing into High Fidelity, such that when you come in for the first time, it'll bring up a pop-up asking you to sign up or log in, with still the option to skip. And I have, back in the past, when I was creating a sort of like a quickie tutorial, one of the things I had brought up was, if a user opts not to sign in and skip the sign-up system, to at least notify them of the things that they will probably not have access to, and ask, are they sure? Like, hey, you can still go back. So it would be a case of, like, lack of access to the marketplace, lack of access to the wallet system, not being able to form connections and having a friends list, and then, of course, if that feature was introduced, being able to send messages to your connections and friends.
That sounds like a perfectly sensible compromise.
Yeah.
It would be the same thing as going, I'm in privacy mode on my Firefox. How dare this website not remember my preferences?
Right, exactly. So if people are okay with it, then yeah, that would be totally understandable to, have a central thing. Of course, that would mean additional servers at High Fidelity would have to be running on their own system, but
maybe or maybe not, because at least with the HiFi account, we can always use that wonderful OpenID that I know they must be using because of the Steam login function.
If they're using it, the keyword.
Well, I know that when I came in here, I used my Steam ID initially, and it spawned a HiFi account from my Steam account.
Yeah.
So clearly they're using OpenID at least partially. At least with that, now we don't have to play the game of UUIDs or anything like that. You can just direct it to, hey, I want this user. Now the hard part is just the delivery system again.
Yeah, and like I said, it would be a case of either would High Fidelity operate as a courier, as in like an inbox outbox sort of thing, or would it be a case of offering to mention? Because I guess in that case it would be a.
Yeah, the big problem is if it's on HiFi shoulders and all that text traffic, I can see that crippling them.
Yeah, and the issue would then be, it's like, again, this goes back when I was observing a pure peer-to-peer method. It would be a case of how do you, well, like, aside from knowing where they were, it'd be a case of, well, if the message gets sent out, and this is it going back in that trust issue, if I, as a server operator, and I felt like being evil for a day, I set up my server to always keep an eye on all incoming text messages to send out to people who are messaging each other. I could be nefarious. I could be that person that's like, yes, let me see those messages. They may not be readable to me now, but I can now do something. I am the man in the middle. And that is where it would be an issue again of...
Our current chat and our current voice, it's already being bounced from directly the domain that we're currently standing in to everybody else currently connected to the domain, right?
Right.
Right.
So the big issue is when you're on different domains, the two domains actually trusting each other then.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, if I end up going to a place where I'm only there to meet someone, but I would honestly not trust it to receive messages, that's where it would become an issue. And that's why I was... it was actually thought about back when we were doing the whole explanation again with the peer-to-peer thing, where you would use a domain as a node point, like a courier pickup.
I just thought of something, but it relies on a bit more on the storage for the domains. You must visit the domain. For, like, say I visited Codex. Codex gets to know me, and I pass it a private token on how to talk to me. Then I visit here at Maker, and I pass Maker my private token. That way, if somebody in Codex tries to message me, what will happen is Codex will encrypt it in a way that only I know how to decrypt it because it has my private key. It passes it to Maker. Maker doesn't care. It just passes the encrypted message to me, and I decrypt it because I already had that prior conversation with Codex.
That's how originally I had that whole trust system set up, was that that was the other approach.
So you'd have to visit every domain and trust them one at a time.
That, or the other way would be if you were a server operator and say I'm the owner of Codex, which I'm not, but it's because everyone's more familiar with Codex than Voxel. So say I set up Codex so that even if you're not in Codex, you could still have a little, like, lifeline connected to just the assignment client that handles messaging.
Mm-hmm.
then it would be a case of where, okay, even though you're in a domain that isn't where you're actually trusted, as long as you have people who are connected to, so like that would mean in that case that would be a case where if I try and send you a message, but I don't have codex in my trusted thing, I would not be able to message you because there's no delivery point. The only way it would work is if I had agreed that codex is trustworthy, and then you would be able to receive a message. So like you would have to have your connections all agree to at least one or more trusted domains that are running messaging
between both of us peers, we would have to have some sort of in common domain that we can agree to talk through.
Right, and then basically as you add those layers, those additional things, you could form, assuming the server is okay with it, a sort of mini connection that's just simply checking for messages. And then that way, even if, say, like, you know, codex goes down, but both you and I have a trustworthiness with voxel or maker, then it would be like, well, codex is down, but I can still send you messages because these two other locations are at least still up, and we both agree with them.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not going to be very user-friendly, and I'm trying to think of a way of wrapping that nicely, but I can't think of anything yet.
Yeah, and that's... Unfortunately, that's the kind of the issue with HiFi. On one hand, there's the level of compromise because of how high fidelity is set up. Like, again, going back with like the whole, well, why is everyone, you know, why are all these servers existing but not being able to see everything kind of approach?
I can think of something that would probably work, and it fits very well with the nature of high fidelity. We create post offices. So anybody can make a post office domain, and the way the post office domain works is users have to intentionally go to the post office, sign up for it. They get a special app that talks specifically to that post office. You can link more than one post office to each other, and whenever anybody tries to send you a message, as long as both of you in common have at least one post office, you can talk to each other.
Ooh.
So it's basically the same thing as like Flame is down in the United States, I'm in Canada. I can send him a message using USPS, I can send a message using Canada Post, whatever I want, so long as both of our post offices link to each other.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying going back, and that's why I was saying going back with the other idea with the mesh network. I guess if you did like that mesh network thing and then combined it with that methodology, that would be forming links between varying servers. So say I have my app in voxel, but me and codex have an agreement, codex has a mailbox system, it wouldn't matter. We could still message each other simply because the servers have a truce between each other.
All you have to do is
would work.
You just visit each post office, you generate a unique private token that you give to each one, and then those post offices are capable of sending you any messages that are relayed to you from that post office.
Right. Yep, and then high fidelity wouldn't have to get involved at all.
Yeah, and there's always some
and you could still sign up for multiple post offices, which would only strengthen. It's almost like a Wi-Fi signal. It just increases how many points you have to go to.
Yeah, and say one day we find out that, I don't know, Hubajuba post office, the developer behind it did something scandalous. Well, I just revoke my token to that post office and I say, you know what, Hudabla is much better. I'm going to use them as my post office now, and I just give them a new private token, and then my old private token I just make expired.
Yep. Yep, and like I said, going back with like server operators being able to form links, that would also allow even server operators to go, hey, wait a minute, something's wrong with this domain. There's something wrong with that owner. And so the server operators could even revoke it as well. So even like, you know, you come in, it's like you have messages that would have otherwise been waiting and being sent to Hubaju or whatever. It's not going there because the server admins immediately acknowledged something was wrong and could cut ties as well.
And the way you can, and if you want to put it in the hands of the user, you can allow the user to decide whether or not two post offices are allowed to be linked.
Right.
Because you just pass them both the same tokens, eh?
Exactly.
I can really see that working, and the greatest thing about that is it's entirely up to the users to moderate it and develop it, and if the users find it something better, they can just invent something better.
Yeah. Now the head scratching part is how do we get the communication to work? I mean, I've been dabbling with Qt more, so I guess in theory some kind of applet like approach could be done that way, but again it would have to be
just use a good old-fashioned mailbox from Unix or from multi-user kingdoms.
It has to be multi-operation operating system friendly.
Those are so ancient you can run it on a Pepsi machine.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the old Q-mail system from dial-in days, where say you and I both visited a university server, you could leave messages for each other.
Yeah.
That system's ancient. You can compile that kind of stuff on anything. I hark from the world of multi-user kingdoms. Those are. Does anybody know what MUDs are? It's a MUD that was created by users, and everything's developed by users in the world.
Yeah.
But they had a mail system, and all it does is you just, hey, person A has message for person B. I'll hold on to that. You have this much space remaining in your inbox.
Oh, you said MUD, did you?
Yep, multi-user dungeon.
I think I've heard it.
Multi-user dungeon, or the ones I hark from multi-user created kingdom. Muck?
Well, I don't know very much.
Don't forget the mushes.
Yep, mush too. Multi-user shared hallucination.
So in other words, they were all just MUDs. It's just they decided to give it fancier names.
Well, they have different things under the hood. They're all extremely in common. We called it the MU star system, but the MU star system they all had the base technology, which was Telnet, but they all had slightly different things under the hood. So, for example, in a muck, it was technically impossible to pick up a player, but in mush, they didn't care at all. You could pick up a player as if like any other object.
Wow.
Yeah. The way mush worked was absolutely everything was a container. It didn't matter what it was. An action could be a container. You could have a weird nesting doll go on where you could have people in a chat room which was in the pocket of somebody else.
Glorious.
Oh yeah, we used to do some pretty weird things.
I could imagine.
But yeah, post office idea might actually fly. I'm gonna think about that some to work out the logistics, and then I'm gonna throw it out there to the developers and see if anybody cares.
Now, the only thing that dawned on me is how does the recipient decrypt it? Like, would we? Because that's the only issue.
You generate yourself a private token, and you give the public token to your post box. So your post box can encrypt it, but only you can decrypt it.
Right.
You know, using modulus.
Oh yeah. Okay. I was thinking backwards. I was thinking
imagine
the
the world
was encrypted.
Imagine the world's slowest form of HTTPS ever.
Yeah. I was thinking, like I said, I was thinking backwards, and I was like, wait a minute, how does?
When you reply, it's the other way around. You need to use the other way.
Yeah.
So if I reply, I tell the post office, "Hey, I want to say hoodabla and have a merry day to Flame," and they say, "Okay." They encrypt it using your public key, and then only you can decrypt it. So you're still trusting the post office with your messages, just like we're trusting Maker right now with what we're saying. But at least now you're trusting one place or more, depending on how many you opt into, as opposed to some random dude's server that you don't know.
Yeah, and that would be interesting because then you'll have like on your connections or your address or whatever, that it would be like, you see one person and they only have like one agreed host outbox or inbox connection and stuff like that. So it's like, the more that everyone has an agreed upon thing, then it strengthens how well you can connect in case something happens.
Yeah, and you know how the open source community is like. Some people make a major branch and then everybody will make sub branches that are basically copy pasta of that original branch with a slight difference.
Yeah.
And then generally what will happen is almost always this happens is somebody will make one that's basically everybody agrees is the superior one, and most people tend to use that main hub. And even if not everybody uses that main hub, so many people will that all the sub hubs will tend to be sub connected to them. So it won't take very long before you have a pretty stable network. It's the same thing, like, you can reach almost anybody through Discord or Telegram these days just because everybody agrees that they like Discord or Telegram.
Yeah, like I said, I'm really going to have to learn how to do all of that, because when it comes to encryption, I'm an idiot. So
I can't program it, I just understand the logistics of it.
Oh, in my case, I barely understand the logistics of it. But when it comes to programming, it's like, oh dear God, why? Like, I always view it as like, well, wait, how do you make message, but you made the mess. It's like, it just hurts my head to like think about the public and private key relationships.
The most very basic version of this that I was told that helped me a little bit was, you and I want to exchange information.
Well, you don't have to explain it. Like I said, I've already gone through quite a few other things, and I have other stuff that
it's really cool because you can have a man in the middle, overhear our entire conversation both directions, and they won't know what our conversation is just because of the way of modulus works. Because modulus is a freaking weird artifact in math.
Please, no more math. I have dealt with quaternions. My brain has a little sign that it will post that says, I want to die after I figure it out.
I'm dyslexic. Math hurts my head.
Yes.
What was that?
What? Okay, even though I'm like in my... Like I said, I pulled this avatar out from ages ago. Alright.
Shall you must stream forever and ever and ever.
Welcome back, Wade.
Well, alright.
Bye.
Wade, do you want to hear the summary?
Excellent. Thank you for watching, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye!
Boy!
Oh, we lost Wade again.
Oh.
I am. Bye.
Okay, take care, and thank you for your input.
Get out of here. Now. Do it.
Well, we